Hi, hello everyone. Let's discuss on the FSD, Functional Specification Document. I'll explain you what are the key components of Functional Specification Document and how to prepare that document by business analyst and what are the importance of in that document of the business analyst. So the FSD, your blueprint for the software success and understand the functional specific requirement. In that, let's discuss on that topic in detail, and you should after completing that uh, PowerPoint presentation, you should able to very well understand the functional specification document and their key components and why that document is used by the business analyst and what are the table of content of that documents, and you should be understand the scope of that document. So let's move on the next slide. So what is an FSD? FSD is the acronym for the functional specification document. The definition of FSD is a document that dealing what the systems will do. So there in FSD contain the system related document, how the system should work. So that's what are the points system will cover and how that should done by the system that's are covered in the FSD. Focus on the user facing functionality and behavior. If the user has a different role, it's an operational role, market role, or it's a different role, senior manager, junior manager, or the tailor, that kind of role. So it should face the different kind of the UI UX. So it's a maker checker kind of functionality. So that should cover on the focus. Then the purpose, that translate the business needs into clear technical specification. It should be technically feasible. What are the business requirements? What the business want that functionality? It should be clearly technical feasible or the technical specification. And the visual, the flow charts. There is a flow charts of there is a business requirement or the BRD document. From that business requirement or BRD document, we should prepare the functional specification document or the functional requirement document from the business requirement document. So how the that business requirements are worked actually in the functional or in the system, and then deployment, we do the coding and then the deployment part is there. Let's move on the next slide. So on the next slide, why is the FSD is crucial? It's an important. It is a clarity. It is reduce the rework. It has a scope creep control. It testing bias and the visuals. Okay, so on let's discuss on the clarity part. It ensure everyone is aligned on the project's goal. So FSD cover the project's goal, project objective, in scope and out scope functionality. So after reading the FSD document, everyone should understand the project's goal or that the enhance the functionality, then reduce the rework. If there is the know the document how the functional system should work, then the development or the UAT team or the testing team should not understand how the functional system should work. So it reduce the rework. It catches the issue early and saving time and cost effective. That's the important of or why the FSD is crucial. The scope creep, it prevents the scope creep. It helps the project manager, the product owner, or the scrum master, or the business analyst, or the business team, operation team to be on track, or they should avoid the scope creep. And there is the clear the in scope functionality and out scope functionality. Then the testing bias, provide a clear criteria for the quality assurance. The quality team, testing team, quality analyst should write down the test cases or the RTM from the F functional specification document, how the functionally system should work. So that should be there. And the visual puzzle fitting, stop sign and the roadmap clearly. It should contain the hazards and to be processed in detail. Let's move on the next slide. So key components of an FSD, it's an important part. What are the ideal, the table of content should look like, and what are the components that should be in the functional specification document. Let's discuss on the core components or the core section, and then we will do look at the table of content of the FSD. So introduction and scope. In that we write the what a project is and is not. What we should introduction about the projects. We should introduction about the the objective goal of that project or the functionality of that project. We should clearly write down the in scope functionality and out scope functionality. After completing all the required content in the FSD, so what are the in scope, what point we should cover, and what are the out scope functionality. Then the functional requirement document, the system should cover the feature, all the functional requirement document that come from the business requirement document should cover in the FSD. Okay, then non-functional requirement like performance, security, and usability should be covered in the functional specification document. Then user interface requirements, how it look like and feel. There is a detailed prototypes are covered. There is the wireframes prototype should cover. There will be the Balsamic tool we use for that. InVision tool we use for that. Figma tool we use for the create the wireframes and prototype, and there the UI UX how should look like. Then error handling, there are the different kind of error, how the system respond on issue. There is a password error, there is a login error, how should the system will involve, what the screen system should pop up, and how that UI UX should like that, all cover in the error handling part. And then the visual, then the table of content icon on checklist should cover. Let's discuss on the how the typical the table of content look like of the FSD document. So there is the list down the table of content. So there is an introduction, there is a overall description, there is the functional requirement, specific requirements like functional requirement, non-functional requirement, external external interface requirement, data model and data requirements, and then the system architecture, appendices, there is a glossary, index, revise history, or the approval sign up. Let's discuss each thing in detail. So functional specification document are the table of contents. So introduction, in introduction we write the purpose of the document, why that document we are creating, what the goal we are going to solve. Then we will do the scope of the system, what are the in-scope functionality and out-scope functionality. Then we write the audience, like a stakeholder, what the audience or the stakeholder we are going to cover in that the FSD document, and what are the roles there we are going to change from that FSD document. Then the definition, acronym, and abbreviation are covered in the introduction part, and then the references, and then document overview that we will write in detail with the process or the flow of that document. Then we will move the overall description, product perspective. So how the that change and the functional specification document will look like in the product perspective, product functions, user characteristic, constraint, operational, regulatory hardware and software. So assumptions and dependencies to do the functional specification document. That should all the covers in the overall description part. Then the specific requirement, we should have the functional requirement, we should have the non-functional requirement. There is a external interface requirement, data model, and the data requirements. In the functional requirement, we should cover detailed description of each the function the system will perform. Then input, process, and output of each functions, user stories or use cases if applicable for certain functional requirement, that should be there. Then the non-functional requirement, so in non-functional requirement, performance requirement, response time, how the system will perform. Then the security requirements, authentication, authorization, and data interference, usability requirement, ease of use, and learnability, reliability requirement, uptime, error handling, scalability requirement, maintainability requirement, compatibility requirement. So all these requirements comes under the non-functional requirement. Then the external interface requirement. Okay, user interface, UI, software interface, API, data changes format, hardware interface, communication interface, data model and data requirement, describe of the data entities and their relationship, data type, constant validation. All the data related to the functional requirement we should cover in the data model and data requirement, and that be an important part of the functional specification document. And then we write down the system architecture, high level overview of the system, major component and their interactions we should cover in the system architecture part. And then the appendices, glossary, index, revision history of the update, what we are going to change it, that should be updated in the revision history part. And then any supporting diagram, mock-up, supplementary information, and we take approval or sign off from the business team related to that functional requirement document. So that's all thing covered in the table of content of the FSD document. Let's move on the next slide. So functional requirement, it's an important part. So the definition of functional requirement, like describe the specific features and the actions, the system performance. If is the functional requirements we should do, how the system will perform that requirement. Then the format of the functional requirement, the system shall do something so the user can able to do something. The user shall be begin in login, user should be create the new password, user should able the system should display the login screen for the user. The systems, if the login credential are correct, then system should display the home page of that user. There contain the fields that should cover in the the format of the functional requirement document or the functional requirements. Then example, user registration, product search, payment processing, login screen. There is the or reports or report screen. That's are the example of the functional requirement document. And then visual, a user interacting with web page or the actions button. So that's the visual thing a user can see. Then non-functional requirement, the how well definition, a specific of quality attribute and constraint of the system that are covered in the non-functional requirement. For example, performance response time, throughput points, security, data protection, access control, scalability, handling more usable data, usability, ease of use, and the visuals, a speedometer, padlock, and user modeling should be used in non-functional requirement. And the system should cover all the non-functional requirement in detail way. Let's move on the next slide. So who use the FSD? So what are the key stakeholders that use the FSD and why they are using the FSD, that should cover in detail. So business analysts and product owner are uses the FSD. So business analysts use the FSD to create the FSD to understand is the requirements, and the product owner should understand the requirements from the FSD. So derive and document the requirement. So all the requirement that should contain in the business requirement document that are covered in the FSD in the perspective of the system, how the system should work after implementing the functional requirement. And then the developer are the crucial who are develop the system on on behalf of organization. So that's the developer part. Then the tester validate the system against the specification. So tester will route down the test cases or the RTM, and they are validated and they are checked is the system will work as we are expected. And the stakeholder review and approve the shared document. So there is a business stakeholder, they are review the document, they are check the document, and they will give the approval on that document once that document is satisfy their requirement. And then the visuals, icon representing BA different BA development, that's are the visual parts. Let's move on the next slide, which is the FSD best practice. If you follow the parts on the best practice, so you will be able to create the clear understandable for the FSD for the development team and all the business users. It should be clear and concise to avoid the jargon, focus and essential detail. Make it testable. So testing team should able to test that functionality or feature. It should satisfy the definition of smart or invest. So that's that you requirement should be a testable. Use of visuals, diagrams, mock-up, flow chart, enhance the understanding. If you use the visuals of each requirement, it contain the basic flow, alternative flow, exceptional flow, positive flow. So that's the visual representation. And they collaborate. It involve all the relevant stakeholder who are interacting with that creation of the FSD. So that should cover in that the collaborate and keep it updated. It is living document. It's always updated. There is a changes in the business requirement document. That changes are impacted on the functional specification document, and accordingly business analysts will update them documents. And the visuals, the magnifying glass and pin and the group collaboration should there to complete the FSD document. So let's move on the last slide. That's the conclusion and call to action. Conclusion and call to action. Key takeaway from that presentation: a well scripted FSD is a functional for the successful software development. So in functional specification document will contain all the functional requirements, how the system should work on that functional thing, the benefits, ensure the alignment and reduce the work and guidance the entire project that help us to ensure the alignment, reduce the risks and the guidance the entire. So every person in that project should understand what are the stages of that functional requirement document or the design, coding, requirement gathering, deployment. So that's the key benefit and call action. What are your FSD experience? Like, share, and subscribe my channel so I'll be motivated. And visuals, the light hub icon, rocket launching, and social media should do. And please follow my channel, and I'll be motivated from your following. So thank you so much, guys, for attending my lectures. And thanks once again. Let let's you should be a business analyst and you should achieve your goal. So thanks, student.